but economically and politically, it's been heavy. And for the most part, at least these past 2 weeks have been even heavier because of everything going on. But I just wanted to say, number one, thanks for being a team. Thanks for supporting myself and of course Dr. Sims. And just I want to definitely want to just more or less make sure that, of course, we want justice. That's number one, justice for all the cruel, the horrible murders that have taken place. But on top of that, the biggest thing we want is change, because change is a key thing that's gonna lead this whole process forward. And if we don't get change, then I don't know what else we're gonna do. And healthcare is one of the major disparities that tend to occur in the Black community. So let's figure out ways that we can give back. I know I'm looking into various things. The other part is just, like I said, change, and the last part is just support. So above all, thanks guys, and continue to support. Send messages, let us know, keep us in your prayers, your thoughts, everything, and get out peacefully if you want to protest. If that's not you, sign petitions, check in on people. Those are some of the key things that at least right now I can think of and I've been seeing. And call in your political representatives and letting them know that things have to change. There's been a show of force from the police when I was back in Florida. And it was just me and my friend. We were riding a bicycle to a house that he was fixing up. He's in real estate. And for the description, which they said we were two young kids on bicycles breaking into a house, we didn't need to see 5, 6 police cars out front. So it's a really unfortunate thing. But right now, we need better communication, better interaction from law enforcement. But it needs to change first. The whole system needs to change. So that's all I'll say for now. And I'll end it on thanks for thoughts and prayers. And let's continue to stand in solidarity and love for sure.
It's really exhausting to be Black in America, and even more so to be a Black male in America. That's why I wanted Dr. Frank to speak first, because at the end of the day, I still have sort of a privilege being a woman and educated that helps me a little bit when I'm Black. Like Derek even mentioned this before when he saw, one of the posts I put where I keep my white coat on my passenger seat. And I haven't worn a white coat ever. Like, I keep my white coat and my stethoscope on my passenger seat. Some people put books, but this is like every day. This is stuff that we're taught as a child. This is how we live all the time. And so it's unfortunate that all of this is happening, but it's really relieving, because people have thought like racism is like something that doesn't exist, and that it's all in your head, and that, oh no, it's an isolated incident. Oh, it's just a few bad apples. And so for finally to feel not so alone, it's really relieving. It's really relieving to look around and just be like, okay, everybody knows now. I can stop like carrying this burden all the time by myself. It's difficult being a Black doctor, because you have the added burden of being a representative of all Black people to some people who haven't grown up with Black people, who's never seen Black people, and not being able to be yourself. Maybe you want to have pink hair. Like I like all the cool styles. I want to have a nose ring. I want to do all these things, but I always have to remember that people are watching me and that I'm representing Black people every time. And then you become this conservative version of yourself that you probably aren't, because you can't go out like and just go get a taco with a hoodie on. Like, people don't think about those things, but we think about them all the time. Like people would understand. I was like, no, I don't wear hoodies. They're like, why? I'm like, because I could get shot wearing a hoodie. Like, I dress up when I go outside. I put on makeup a lot. People, like, it keeps you from being just a regular person. And when you don't think about it, and the reason why it's an issue now is because all these little Black kids are growing up free, and they're growing up looking at their white friends, and they're like, I can be like my friend. I want to wear a hoodie. I want to just mouth off to a police officer and get away with it. And they're getting shot because they think that they have the same freedoms, and they don't. And that is the problem. And now we're at the precipice of people finding out that that's a problem, and it's chaos. And then there are people that are taking advantage of that chaos. And then people say, well, it's hurting the movement. And I'm like, you know what? They said that about Martin Luther King too. And as toward the end of his life, he started to believe that nonviolence maybe not is a solution. And no one likes to talk about that because he was killed and murdered being nonviolent. He was the enemy of the state. 73% of the people of America did not agree with him. This was not kumbaya. Everybody was not like, all hail MLK. They hated him because he was nonviolent, but because it doesn't matter. All of those maybe, like, I am a Christian that believes in like nonviolence. That's not even an issue. Like, I totally understand. Like, I don't want people to die. I don't want buildings to be broken into. That's not the way you solve things. But it's also when all the change happened. As soon as he died, riots broke out all over the world. Riots broke out all over the United States, and then the Civil Rights Act was written. So this has been a long time coming. And unfortunately, there's a lot of Black women and Black people who are bearing the brunt of this because they are fearing for their husbands and they're fearing for their sons. And not that they're not bearing a more burden than the Black men, but it's just, you have to think about what would you do if you had a husband that you knew every time, like if he went out at night, he might not come back just for failing to signal, running a stoplight, jaywalking, he might not come back to your life. And this is a feeling that we live with every day. And I've been pulled over by police and I've been yelled at. Like, even as a doctor with the white coat, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. My skin has been weaponized and it has been seen as something that's subhuman for a really long time. And it's time for a change. And this is what's happening. And unfortunately, it's happening in our lifetime. And I just feel like it's just a lot. So I thank you guys for being the people that you are, being the loving people that you are, and reaching out and just listening and learning and reaching. And I apologize for those of you who I haven't reached back out to, because I haven't really been talking. I literally have been like on the phone, just reading and making sure everybody's okay, watching my friends at protests, making sure that they're not getting killed at protests, peacefully protesting, doctors peacefully protesting. And I'm like watching like their whole life to make sure they come back alive. Like I'm constantly reposting information for my friends because I have white friends who are on there and they're like, what can I do? What should I say? How can I help? And I'm like, okay. And then I have Black friends that are like, we need to do a Zoom because we're all like falling apart. And like, we have like 200 and something Black naturopaths. And they're just like, what is happening? Like, we're finding out some of our best friends are like one step away from being a Klansman. Like, what do we do? These people are taking care of people. How do we fight as doctors? And as a doctor, I have a platform of being intelligent and using my platform and having that privilege of the audiences that I have. So I have to be able to use that because I don't necessarily feel like my lane is rioting or not even rioting, protesting. And then even pointing out like the inaccuracies of how we speak about it. Like even me, I'm like, oh, and rioting. I'm like, no, they're not rioting. They're protesting. There are rioters, but they're not all rioting. They're peacefully protesting. But this is what we've dealt with. And so I would like to point out, and this is something before I forget, there are only 2 Black naturopathic doctors in San Diego. And they're right here on the phone right now. We're the only 2 Black naturopaths here.
Wow.
We're all in the same practice. We're both in the same practice.
I did not know that.
What?
Yeah. Who else? Does anybody know anybody?
I have no idea. What?
Wow.
You guys are a blessing.
Wow.
So let me tell you. That's because Nourish is full of doctors who aren't racist. And they don't see it as the problem. Does that make sense? Like, that's what I like. There's 2 Black naturopathic doctors in the city, and we're both on this Zoom call. That's what it looks like when you hire people and when you pick people that you feel fit the aesthetic of your practice, and it has zero to do with color. It has to do with skill set. It has to do with heart. You just so happen to pick 2 Black people. It wasn't a mandate by the government. It wasn't.
I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that. Like, I'm blown away. Like, I guess I didn't even, I never
Exactly,
thought about it.
Because you don't think about it because it's not racist, right? Because you don't like,
but now I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how can we help support and build, I get first step is awareness.
That's what I was going to go into. What can you do?
Yeah.
I don't think people realize this, but yeah, we have the 2 Black doctors here, but I only have 1 Black patient. And that's what I'm talking about on Dr. Jess's show, because they can't afford the medicine. And then the people who can't afford it don't know we exist because they're not used to seeing Black doctors. And research shows all the time that people like the people who look like them. And that's just what it is. And it's not racist. It's just what you feel comfortable with because people understand you. And so just letting them know that we exist and we're out there, is really important. Learning is important. Educating yourself. I'm putting lots of stuff on my Facebook wall and just education on history, relearning history, because we were taught a very revisionist history. It was very whitewashed to make us look very happy, and we were not happy, and everything is not okay. And so relearning history with the truth helps you see. And then once you see and come into that knowledge, then you understand why we have the problems we have. And then you start to dismantle a system that was created to keep Black people as slaves, even though the documents say we're no longer slaves. It was very strategically created to create a prison system in which you could still have slavery and it could be privatized, so then it would have no rules. And so all of this, from redlining to make sure the Black stayed in Black communities and not get money for housing, to voter suppression, all of that still goes on today, and so I just feel like educating each other on that is important, and educating yourselves on that, reaching out to the friends that and I just feel like we are coming into the knowledge of that, and it's going to be change, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to hurt. And I think that it's a part of healing. Like no rehabilitation, no healing is like when you have surgery and you pull out a tumor and you come back, like that whole recovery period sucks. You're in pain. You have to, sometimes people have learned to have to re-walk again and do all of this stuff. And that's what it's like. We are dissecting of like tumor and cancer of hate out of our culture. And it's going to be a rehabilitation process. And we have to be okay with the uncomfortableness. And you have to be quiet, and you have to listen, and you have to like challenge your own beliefs. I challenge my own beliefs all the time. I even listen to people who say racism doesn't exist. I will listen to that because I'm like, maybe I'm missing something. Most of the time I'm not, all the time, but I still listen, right? So that's it. I just think it's going to be hard, and we have a long road ahead of us. And I will say this, and I'm not a doom and gloom person, but you need to focus on yourself and nourishing yourself and taking care of yourself, because it's probably going to get worse. And I'm not, like I said, I'm a super like happy, like this is going to be okay, but it's not going to be okay, because there are powers that be that they don't want this to happen. And so, and there's still people getting killed. Latino. So I don't know if it's going to get better. I don't know if we're going to have this great awakening and like tomorrow is going to be okay. I think it's going to be like pulling teeth to get freedom. And even the fact that you have to say, we gave you freedom. You can't give someone freedom. Like it was theirs. You can stop them from having it, but you can't, but the word, even the language of saying, I want to give you freedom is one of superiority. Yeah. But I think the biggest way to make change is to decrease the like polarizing view that that we're so different by being around other people. Like we're very segregated still. Like, and one of the things that, my dad used to say all the time as a pastor, he was like, Sunday is the most segregated time of the week, because all these people talk about love, but then we all go to churches that are Black and then white. Like, And so, and then when you do that, I mean, I remember growing up and like, I didn't see a little white kid until I was like 10. It was the first time I saw a little white kid, because I grew up in Alabama and the schools are still segregated. They didn't say it, but all the black kids went to black schools. And so, you know, and then, so then when I started going to school, just like Jazzy, like when I started going to school, the first thing that happened was I got made fun of all the time. And then I was the only black person. So they had never seen one before. And so it was like, attack, you're different. And so exposing your children to that, I think that diversity is like getting around people and getting out of your bubble. Like you have to get out of your bubble. So that's why, you know, one of the things I was telling Derek to do, like I wanted to, because I did a lot of outreach before, because the reality is people are not going to be able to afford to come to see a naturopathic doctor. They're dropping $300 and $400. They're not going to be able to sustain it. Even if we give them free visits, they're not going to be able to sustain the supplements and things like that. So having time where I go out and give free healthcare once a month or going to some community clinic is like how I serve. Because then a black person can see a black doctor and they're super excited and then look forward to that time. So I think a lot of it is about just allowing yourself to, like I keep saying, allowing yourself to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I second that. When it comes to change, especially the interaction component of it, because interaction really and truly is the biggest thing that needs to happen. Conversations, uncomfortable conversations need to happen. And like Dr. Sim says, we got to head down south. We got to head into the areas where we can have these conversations and interactions. So, of course, on top of that, you know, there are different groups, there are different movements that have a wealth. I know, like even Derek was saying, like we do the change in the grassroots component of it too, you know, with the people around you working together to do something bigger. Politically, it's going to be a big one for sure, because mayors, you know, police, sheriff, everything related to whoever you can vote for in a political climate, that's going to be a big thing that will lead to change, you know, in support of, hey, this is what's going on. This is what the Black community is asking for. And how can we support them in that? Create change with how we vote, and also create change with how we speak and what we know. So that's a big one.
It's the whole community. And I feel like we have to, and just moving forward, because right now we are talking about Black Lives Matter, but us moving forward as a community of Nourish, have to remember all of it. Like we have to remember the poor white kids that don't have parents, that are like so many of them in the system. And then we have to remember our Latino, and we have to remember all of our Black kids. And like, we just got to lift up the community, because we're in a bubble. Like we're in an educated, like middle class to high class bubble. So we have to get out of the bubble and like show people what can like be a reality for them, but they have to have the tools, and a lot of times they don't have the tools. So then we need to help facilitate the tools getting there. So even if you don't want to go out to the community and do community, like as long as you are serving in some type of capacity, whether you're giving your money or you're giving your time on some type of think tank that's going out and doing that work, you just give your resources, your time, your intellect, whatever you can give. You find your lane and you stay in your lane. Don't try to be You do not have to take a bullet for me at a protest. That is not what I'm asking you to do. I feel like everybody has their lane. And I think that discovering of how you can help is like an internal thing. Like, who am I and how can I be the best me that I can be and affect change? Like, but you got to do it your way. Don't be inauthentic. So I didn't want to talk too long, but that's long enough. So thank you guys for loving us. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being like just loving and kind and good humans. I appreciate that.